Seydou, a 16-year-old teenager from Senegal, Africa, lives a simple life with his mother and younger sisters. As the only son, Seydou feels a great responsibility to raise his family's status. With a natural talent for music, Seydou aspires to have a career in Europe one day. Unbeknownst to his mother, Seydou and his cousin Moussa work as construction workers every school holiday to save money so they can go to Europe. In the evenings, Seydou and his family entertain the locals by playing drums and dancing traditional dances according to their tribe's traditions. Music and dance are an important part of Seydou's life, not only as entertainment, but also as a means to preserve their culture. After returning home, Seydou dared to ask his mother for permission to go to Europe. He was sure that by introducing traditional Senegalese music to European countries, he would definitely be successful. However, his mother immediately forbade him because the journey to Europe was very dangerous and many of his friends had died because of going there. Even though Seydou kept begging, his mother still did not approve. "You are not allowed to go to Europe, period. If you want to help earn money, just help mom sell at the market," his mother said angrily. Seydou apologized and decided to go to bed. The next morning, when Seydou and Moussa were going to school together, because of last night's incident, Moussa also got angry with his mother. "Mom just doesn't want anything to happen to you two," his mother said while grumbling. The two boys pretended to obey. On the way, they fought. Moussa was annoyed. "Why did Seydou ask for permission? We already agreed to go secretly. If we fail to go to Europe, our struggle for 6 months to collect money will be in vain." Hearing that, Seydou apologized. "I just didn't want to go without your blessing. After all, heaven is still under your feet." That night, after finishing his work as a construction worker, Seydou helped his mother sell at the market, while guarding Seydou's stall, and Moussa wrote song lyrics for fun. A few days later, after they had saved enough, Seydou and Moussa went to the market to meet the immigration agency officer. However, seeing the two children who wanted to go to Europe, the officer immediately forbade them firmly. The officer said, "The trip there is very dangerous. Besides, European countries are not as beautiful as you imagine. Many immigrants there are starving and sleeping on the streets. Rather than dying stupidly, it's better for you to stay here." Even though he had been reminded, Moussa remained stubborn. The officer got angry and threw them both out. After hearing the story, Seydou wanted to back down. However, Moussa tried to convince him. Moussa said, "Remember all our struggles for 6 months to collect money. Europe is waiting for us. Imagine if our dream of becoming famous musicians came true and we were rich. Mom would be proud." Instantly, Seydou's spirit returned. The two of them then looked for another immigration agency. The next day, to be more sure, Seydou and Moussa asked a shaman for advice. After being sprayed by the shaman, they were told to pray to the graves of their ancestors and ask for blessings. Hearing the shaman's orders, the two boys obeyed. The night before leaving, Seydou took the time to gather with his family. He kept looking at his mother's face, feeling sad because he had to be separated for a while. However, he hoped that his struggle would be successful and his mother would be proud. "I'm sorry, Mom." Seydou was forced to break Mom's prohibition. "Pray for Seydou's success," Seydou said with a heavy heart. After everyone was asleep, Seydou quietly packed his clothes and prepared to leave, leaving the house and his mother, who did not know that he had left. After traveling for 2 days, early in the morning before crossing the border of Niger, Seydou's bus group rested at the terminal. During the break, because they were still minors and did not have passports, Seydou and Moussa made illegal passports so they could cross the border. In the afternoon, the bus continued its journey. When they arrived in Niger, the border police checked the passengers' passports one by one. However, when it was Seydou and Moussa's turn, their passports were found to be fake. The police threatened to imprison them or ask for dollars. Like it or not, they were forced to pay. After hours of traveling, they arrived at the terminal in Agadez, a city in Niger. When they got off the bus, a man offered them a faster transportation service to Libya, even directly to Italy. Without thinking, they agreed. After paying, they were taken to the pickup point with other immigrants and told to wait. That night, the immigrants gathered to discuss the route to Libya because they would be passing through the desert. One of the immigrants said that there were many robbers there, and to keep the money safe, he suggested keeping it in his pants. Hearing that, everyone was shocked. After a long discussion, they dispersed. The next morning, after shopping for supplies for the trip, because he didn't want his money to be stolen, Musa followed the advice of the man from last night. In the toilet, Musa hid his money in his pants. That night, Seydou, Musa, and the immigrants left for Libya in a pickup truck. They were ready to face tough challenges in the desert in order to reach their destination in Europe. In the middle of the trip, because the road was bumpy, one of the immigrants fell out of the pickup truck. However, instead of stopping, the driver continued on his way, leaving the immigrant alone. After a day of travel, all the immigrants were then forcibly dropped off in the middle of the desert. It turned out that the car did not take them all the way to Libya. Seydou, Musa, and the other migrants had to walk, led by a guide who seemed to be familiar with the route. With hearts full of fear and hope, they continued their journey, not knowing what they would face in the barren and hot desert. Due to severe dehydration, there was a mother who was no longer able to walk. When she heard someone asking for help, Seydou rushed over and gave her a drink. However, even though she had been given a drink, the mother was still exhausted and eventually fainted. When Musa shouted that the group was getting further away, Seydou was in a dilemma. He did not want to let the mother die in the middle of the desert, but he was also afraid of being left behind. Holding back his sadness, Seydou apologized and left the mother. That night, they finally all arrived in Libya. However, suddenly the border police stopped them and confiscated all their money. In the middle of the search, because they were suspicious, the police forced the immigrants to drink stomach medicine. When checking their feces, Musa was caught hiding money. Musa was arrested. Seeing his cousin being taken away, Seydou could only surrender. Now he had to continue his journey without money and without Musa. The next day, after traveling quite a distance, Seydou and the immigrants were told to get on a truck without knowing where they were going. After a long journey, Seydou and the other migrants arrived in the Libyan city of Saba. However, they were taken to the headquarters of a human trafficking syndicate. There, they were grouped according to their country of origin and met with an interpreter. The translator explained that the condition for release from the place was that each person had to call their family to ask for a ransom of $800. If there was no ransom, then they would be imprisoned and tortured. After explaining, the translator took Seydou and the others to the torture room. The translator showed how painful the torture was in that place, while telling all the immigrants to tell their home phone numbers. However, because Seydou did not have a phone number, he had to undergo the torture. The boy could only cry in fear. After being tortured all night, the next day Seydou was imprisoned with other prisoners to be sold as slaves. With a body full of wounds, Seydou remembered all his sins towards his mother. While he was contemplating, an old man greeted Seydou and told him about his regrets as a disobedient child. Seydou admitted that he missed his mother, missed hearing her nagging, and missed seeing her laugh. He was worried that his mother was very worried about him. If God gave him the chance, he really wanted to meet his mother and prostrate himself to apologize. When Seydou sleeps, he keeps talking in his sleep, calling out his mother's name. A man named Martin takes pity on him and tries to calm him down. Martin gives Seydou something to drink and treats Seydou like his own son. The next day, one of the syndicate members looked for immigrants who could work as builders to be sold as slaves. In order to get out of prison, Martin asked Seydou to apply. During the selection process, there was a buyer who was interested in Martin. However, because Martin did not want to leave Seydou, he asked Seydou to be bought too. Luckily, the buyer agreed. Seydou and Martin were then taken to a luxurious house owned by the buyer's boss. After explaining what had to be done, they were both told to eat and rest first before starting work. In the evening, after finishing work, Martin showed Seydou his family photo while chatting casually. Martin said that Seydou was exactly the same age as his son, so he already considered Seydou like his own son. Seydou also said that he had just lost his cousin in the desert and was now all alone. Hearing that, Martin tried to encourage Seydou. He was sure that one day you would meet again. Day after day passed. The two of them continued to work on building the wall until finally they got a new request to build a water pool. If the result was good, exactly the same as the one in the photo, then as a reward, the boss would release them both and would even pay for the travel expenses to the capital of Libya, the city of Tripoli. Seydou and Martin worked enthusiastically. A few days later, after the fountain was finished, the boss came to see the results. Luckily, the results were satisfactory. According to the agreement, Seydou and Martin were released. The next day, the two of them left for the capital city of Tripoli. When they arrived, because their destinations were different, Martin and Seydou decided to separate. Martin will continue the journey to Italy first, while Seydou will look for Musa in the Senegalese settlement living in Tripoli. Before parting, Seydou hugged Martin and thanked him for saving him from the human trafficking syndicate. Martin also prayed that Seydou could meet Musa soon. The two of them then parted ways. Day after day, Seydou continued to search for Musa throughout the Senegalese settlements living in Tripoli. Although he still hadn't found him, Seydou was sure that one day Musa would arrive there. Until one day, when Seydou was working as a laborer on a project, he received news that a Senegalese boy the same age as Seydou had just arrived. Seydou rushed to meet him, and it turned out to be Musa. Seydou immediately hugged him. He didn't expect to finally meet him again. Musa told him that he managed to escape from prison, but his leg was shot. Musa, who was traumatized and could no longer walk, invited Seydou to return to Senegal. Seydou tried to encourage Musa. Remember all our struggles up until now. We are one step away from realizing our dream of going to Europe. Hearing that, Musa began to calm down. Seydou then took Musa to see a doctor he knew who also worked on the project. When examined, the doctor asked Seydou to immediately buy antibiotics and painkillers at the barber. That night, after treating Musa's leg, the doctor suggested that Musa be taken to a hospital in Italy for surgery, because if it was too late, there was a risk that his leg would be amputated. Seydou was worried. The next day, Seydou met an immigration agency near the beach to find a way to take Musa to Italy. At first, Seydou was refused because he didn't have enough money, but because he kept begging, the officer finally helped on the condition that Seydou had to drive his own ship. So he would provide a simple ship for free, and Seydou had to sail his passengers to Italy. Hearing the offer for the safety of his cousin, Seydou agreed. The officer explained at length about how to drive the ship and told Seydou to keep going straight, following the compass to the north to get to Italy. That night at the port, while waiting for the day of departure, Seydou pondered while looking at the immigrants who were fast asleep. He was worried that if he failed to drive the ship, then everyone there could drown. Because he felt unable to bear the burden, the next day, Seydou met the officer again to resign. But the officer didn't care. According to the initial agreement, Seydou had to be the captain of the ship. Seydou gave up. That night, after everything was ready, Seydou, Musa, and all the immigrants set off for Italy across the Mediterranean Sea. In the middle of the journey, from a distance, a light was seen. Because they thought Italy was near, Seydou and Musa were very relieved. However, it turned out that the light came from a sea oil mine. Seydou and Musa were disappointed. The next day, there was a pregnant woman on the ship who suddenly felt pain and was about to give birth. As the ship's captain, Seydou tried to calm the woman down. "Be patient, mother. It will definitely be fine. He won't let a single passenger die." When Seydou called the Libyan police and asked for help, because the location was near Italian waters, the Libyan police told Seydou to wait and would contact the Italian border police to send help. Hearing that, Seydou complied. However, it had been hours until nighttime, but help had not arrived. When Seydou called again, the Libyan police's excuses were more complicated. Disappointed, Seydou was forced to continue the journey as quickly as possible so that the mother could be treated at an Italian hospital. The next morning, many passengers began to fall ill due to exhaustion and the ship's less than ideal conditions. Seydou became increasingly worried and tried to calm her down hard to get them all to Italy safely. At the same time, the mother suddenly wanted to give birth, but because everyone was fighting over drinking water, the situation became chaotic. As the captain, Seydou tried to keep calming the passengers and said, "Calm down, we will all be safe. Definitely. Be assured, God is with us." 3 days passed after a long time sailing the sea. Finally, the ship arrived in Italian waters. The mother was also seen to have given birth safely. In the morning, the Italian mainland began to be seen. Seydu and all the passengers cheered happily. When the Italian police helicopter approached and asked who the captain of the ship was, Seydu immediately went up to the ship's cabin while crying. He shouted, "I am the captain." Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Amri Film channel so you don't miss the next movie recaps.